Today in the Psychic Forecast, I'll explain why July of 2025 is a huge global turning point and why the period between the solstice and the end of August could be the most important times of our lives. What's next for the Trump and Musk feud? Will Donald Trump even still be the president come the end of July? And oh yes, we have some crazy geological and solar activity on the table for July. And by the way, have you heard that 4 separate sightings of the Doomsday Fish have happened all within the last week? Those are the oarfish, and according to some of the ancient prophecies, when the oarfish start to wash up on shore, then we're in the end times. But of course, the end times is the new beginnings. That's the new earth. So there's no doom and gloom here. And it's all about our ascension and our growth. And a lot of crazy things are happening. This is a turning point. So I'm going to dive into the predictions in just a moment, but I need to set the table first so you understand a little bit more about what's going on energetically. And I'm going to put the glasses on because when my glasses are on, it means that I mean business, plus I can see my notes, which I cannot possibly keep all this stuff in my head. But we can understand the trends of the universe and how energy moves through our universe and our reality by understanding numeric patterns. So numerology is a valuable tool because everything in the universe is numbered. And also, we can also gauge what's going on energetically through the movement and the angles that the planets are forming because they're energetic and have symbolic meaning in our collective consciousness. So astrology and numerology are great tools. So what's going on? Well, July is a universal number 16 month in numerology. 16 reduces to 7. How do we get that? We just add July, which is the 7th month, to 2025, to the numbers 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 5. It adds up to 16. 1 plus 6 is 7. In Chaldean numerology, the symbol for number 16 is the shattered citadel. In Tarot, major arcana, key 16 is this guy right here, the Tower card, which is the same thing as the shattered citadel, right? It shows that the old structures must fall so that the new ones that are more sustainable can be built in their place. So that's the energy of what's going on with the numerology, that we're in the 16 month. And 16 months will happen some years. It's rare, but it's not totally uncommon, but there is more that makes this 16 month extra special. So let me dive into that also. So 16 reduces to 7. 7 is about intuition, illusions. So the planet Neptune takes precedence in astrology because we're in a universal 17 month and Neptune rules a universal 7 month and Neptune rules over that. So what's Neptune doing? It's stationing. So when it's stationed, it's not moving. That means it's more powerful. It's getting ready to go retrograde. It's at 2 degrees of Aries. So it's right off the world axis. That's 0 degrees of the cardinal sign. So when there's a lot of activity on the world axis, there's a lot of activity in the world. Now, Neptune just went out of its rulership, the last sign of Pisces, which is about endings, and is coming to the fire sign Aries of new beginnings. So there's fire, water, and also Neptune is conjunct Saturn, which is a major power player when it comes to government, global institutions, stuff like that. Businesses, corporations, multinational corporations, like the pharmaceutical companies, the media, all that stuff. So it's under heavy scrutiny, and Saturn is really about also karma and lessons and learning and stuff like that. Also, Neptune is going to be aspecting all the outer planets in a harmonious way, sextiling Aquarius, Pluto in Aquarius at 3 degrees on one side, and then sextiling Uranus, it's poised to go into the sign of Gemini in July also on the other side. That's extremely rare. It's probably been thousands of years where all 4 outer planets from Saturn on out have been in a harmonious, a positive alignment like that, and that's going to carry through the year. So these are generational effects. When the outer planets line up, there's a change in the generation. The world is changing. Numerology shows that. Astrology shows that. So now let's see, is there anything else we have to talk about? Neptune is in Mars. So Neptune is in the Mars-ruled fire sign of Aries. The Tower card's key 16, the ruler of Mars. So Mars is important also. Neptune is water, Saturn is earth. All this adds up to huge changes, potentially disruptive changes in government, society, as well as geology, weather, and even outer space. So that's really the long and the short of it. So what is Mars doing? Oh yes, it's going to be conjunct the South Node, which is very karmic. It's where we've been, and it's opposite the North Node, where we're going. So again, this suggests humanity's at a crossroads, and a huge shift is happening, basically. So let us dive in to what's going on with Trump and Musk. I hear they made up. That was in the news yesterday. Or have they? So basically, assuming that it's not an act, now it could be a distraction, we know that, so some of this could be orchestrated, but assuming, for the sake of argument, it's not an act, because often, again, these things happen to hide other agendas, basically. I think that this will continue for a while, basically. It kind of behooves both Musk and Trump to make up and work together, because if they're feuding, it's bad for both of them. I think that they both realize it. We know that Trump is very emotional also, but we know that Musk is as well, and he's subject to these outbursts, basically. But when the dust settles, he can be very cold, very calculated. He's a tactician, he's became the CEO and top shareholders of major companies for a reason. And if things go on and they're still feuding, he has the potential to take the Trump presidency apart through social media, bit by bit. So I think there's going to be more to that, especially in July. I think there's going to be some more troubles in that relationship, basically. But I think for the most part that they're getting back together, starting to cooperate anyway. Now we also see what's going on in LA, right? Now, also, I predicted the fallout between Musk and Trump back in January. In the June psychic forecast, I predicted more fires and problems in LA, as well as riots where the National Guard was calling in near the southern border. LA is about 3 hours from Tijuana, so that's close. More troubles in California. And there's other things that they came through in the June psychic forecast that are starting to show up now. So basically, that is something to watch also, because, folks, this is just the beginning. And you might recall that we forecast that this was going to escalate. And I think by the end of July, certainly by the end of the summer, we may be talking about the potential of a civil war right here in the United States. And we're seeing the military called in, so there's force against U.S. citizens being enacted, and that's creating further political rifts, further distrust in different politicians and everything. And a lot of people are saying that maybe this whole thing with Trump and Musk was really more like an act to get more exposure on the Epstein list. And one of the things that Musk came out with was that Trump is on the Epstein list. Now, Trump's many things, and I do believe, very much 99% sure that there has been sexual misconduct. But with adults, I don't get Donald Trump being a pedophile. I might be wrong, but I don't pick that up from him. He's a lot of things. So whether or not he's on the list, I don't think he was involved in the actual child trafficking. Again, I could be wrong. If I am and you know something I don't, let me know in the comments, please. But we do know he's had a long-standing friendship, and that he has been on the plane. He has traveled with Epstein, so we know that. But the point that I'm trying to make is that if it's true that this was an act to get the Democrats on board with exposing the Epstein list, allegedly, a lot of high-ranking Democratic officials are on that list. So I don't think the Democrats want that. So I think it's something else. And I'm going to get back to that in a minute. Let me get back into my notes here. Okay, and one final point is, I don't expect that this list is going to be completely publicized. That's the client list of Epstein, basically. In a previous forecast that I made in January for the year, I said some partial exposure in the month of September. I still think that's going to happen, but are we ever going to know the full Epstein list? That's a good question. I think we'll get some partial exposure. And does it even exist? These are other things, but July will see more exposure, so that's a big thing going on in the month of July. And again, there's a little bit more to talk about the Trump presidency, but let me move on. And if corruption that's been exposed thus far has seemed underwhelming based on the promises of the current administration, I think July it's going to amp up a lot, and a lot of stuff's going to come to the surface. A lot of it's government exposure things like companies and agendas that may tap into the pharmaceuticals, pandemics, big players in the movement of things like vaccination programs, stuff of that. You can read between the lines and understand the gist of what I'm talking about. Doesn't mean these people are necessarily guilty, but I think more is going to rise to the surface that may validate that there's some guilt or foreknowledge of things that happened that were known, but the public was being misled. So there's a huge outcropping of muck beneath the surface that's going to rise, that this astrology, numerology is going to help to force to the surface, so that more of the public's going to be aware of how we've been deceived, not just recently during the pandemic, but for a very long time, but focusing on those issues. So I will share predictions of Trump in a moment. Okay, so there's more. But another areas of concern for July are the geology. The New Madrid fault that runs along the Mississippi. I did a separate video on that a while ago that you can check out. Areas off the Pacific, the Axiom Seamount, the Cascadia Fault, or is it the New Cascadia Fault? We've also seen a big outcropping of small earthquakes around Idaho, which is very close to the supervolcano of Yellowstone. And we've seen a lot of magma movement, a lot going on, basically. Italy, China, add Russia, China, and South America to the list. I've seen, and this wasn't on any forecast yet, so this is new, but I've seen big earthquake activity either in eastern Russia or northeast China, in that area. We're seeing a lot of activity South America, right? Fuego, and the I think there was a 7-point something or high end 6-point something shallow earthquake in South America. So the Earth is really firing up, and geologists are seeing more movement. And when we have these solar flares coming in and these geomagnetic storms and the coronal mass ejection, it adds energy and movement to the Earth. And if anything geological, like the fault lines are teetering on erupting, basically, this additional energy will add to that. I do feel like we're going to start to get another round of solar activity around the solstice, more solar flares. A coronal hole is going to be Earth facing again, and that increases the movement and the energy. So a lot of this activity is coming up. So expect to see a lot in the way of earthquakes, volcanoes, some major ones. I think the month of July is going to feature at least one major earthquake, probably two. And one or two of them could affect the U.S. also. July, or right around that time. Timing can be a little bit off. And then, what else? And the oarfish sighting. So there have been 4 separate sightings. One in Tasmania, 1 or 2 in Tasmania. I think one in New Zealand. And oarfish are the largest bony fish on the planet. They live deep beneath the ocean. 1,000, 2,000 feet under the ocean, and they don't come up. They're very rare when you see them. So if 4 of them have washed up, another one in India. So 3 of them right in that southern Indian Ocean, West Pacific area, and then an anomaly in India. So 4 of them have washed up. I've got to believe that there have been many orifices that have been chased to the surface, and then they decompressurize, they die when they get closer to the surface. So 4 have washed up, but there's probably some giant orifice floating around the ocean somewhere. So what brings them up? Well, geological activity under the ocean can bring it up. Volcanoes under the ocean can bring them up. A nuclear detonation can bring them up. There were treaties, I think, in 1990 to end all nuclear testing, but there's still nuclear weapons being developed. They've got to be tested covertly, right? And that's an area of the world that goes under the radar. So they may be doing underwater testing, but anytime there's a nuclear detonation, there's a plasma release, and there's a shock wave that's felt throughout the earth, basically. I mean, very minutely when you get 1,000 or 2,000 miles away from the detonation, but it could still scare the orifice to the surface. Underground volcanoes. So something's going on under the ocean that's creating this. Now, there have been other orifice sightings. There haven't necessarily been calamities following them. Just to be clear about that, it is a legend, it is a prophecy, but there have been 4 in a week, and that means something. So anyway, moving right along. So again, this tells me there's underground volcanoes and everything. Also, we talked about the earthquakes in Idaho. So in short, July may feature multiple large-scale events globally that could involve the U.S. Solar activity increasing around the solstice could bring more solar storms, more power outages, and other events. Some of them could be intentional. Some of them could relate to things going on in the earth, earthquakes and stuff like that. Solar flares can do that. So you look for more large regional power outage possible. Increase of war possible. But I do believe that, and one of my predictions from back in January or December was an end of the Russia-Ukraine war around July. Now, a recent prediction, I said that there would be a 30-day ceasefire, but not after the worst fighting. So the first part of that's come true, that prediction. Let's hope the second part comes true also, because war is not good for anybody or anything, right? So hopefully by the end of June or into July that there will be at least a ceasefire to talk about peace, but I think it's going to ratchet up. I think some of the worst is yet to come, not just Russia, Ukraine, but around the world. Africa, Middle East, all over the world. War is increasing. And again, we may be looking at civil unrest here. We are already starting to here in the U.S., demonstrations all over the world blazing, Europe, Canada, all over, basically. So in a couple of weeks, I'm going to have the detailed July 2nd forecast where I'll dive into these deeper. This is more of an overview today. But since the potential for major issues looms on multiple fronts, remember to put a lot of prayer out there. Remember to raise your consciousness, raise your frequency. That helps to raise the collective. We know the power of prayer, that we know that works. And if we raise our consciousness, that helps to raise the collective, and that could soften the blow and ease some of the suffering. So basically, your prophecy or predictions are just based on the now. So if I'm making a prediction for July, what's happening, I'm either getting a vision or I'm getting a feeling about a future event, but it's a future event. It hasn't happened. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. All that's happening is that I'm getting a prediction in the now, a vision in the now about a possible future event. So if the energies continue to play out the way they are in the present, those will come true. But if we change the energy in the now, that can change the trajectory and change those predictions, basically. Let's do that. Let's bring on the good and mitigate some of the bad and the challenging. So also be prepared. That's the bottom line. There's a lot going on with society, with the government, with shutdowns, with natural disasters or whatever. Be prepared and hope that you never have to use it. To have at least a month of food, if not 2 months, of medical supplies. What would you do if the power went out long term. That means gas stations don't pump. That means the generators don't run anymore. There's no running water. So have a plan and stuff like that. And we'll be fine, basically. And again, if we can raise the consciousness, maybe we won't have to go through that. But I think, again, there's going to be some large regional power outages. I don't think that necessarily means that the lights are going to go out around the world. So we'll see how that happens. So touching back on Trump and global politics, I do feel at least one major leader is going to be stepping down, probably two, or be forced down. On during or around July, maybe Carney, Canada. Kind of think there's some issues going on there again. Starmer, although his term may be running out, I'm not sure about that. But there could be troubles with Putin's health, other world leaders, major world leaders, and of course, Donald Trump. Basically, his health comes up as an issue, extreme pushback, making a lot of enemies. I think that there is a real chance that he could wind up being forced down in the month of July or August. But again, if something changes in the way he handles his affairs and things, that could change. I'm about 99% sure that he's not going to make it full term. My original prediction was about 2.5 years from when he got inaugurated, and then I started to get more information of starting to see these events in July of him being forced down. Health, extreme pushback from Republicans and Democrats alike, and I predicted the assassination attempt. They've shown me one more that could involve an explosion, and there's so much more going on. But there's a big what if going on, and I want to explain that as well, because this is important. And that is, water please. And let me explain what I mean by a little bit of background information. Elections, there's significant evidence, so there's no proof yet, so it's all alleged, that elections are manipulated or fixed, either through technology or through programming or whatever. Not just the last election, but other American elections and elections around the world. So what if the powers that be, the cabal, deep space, the globalists, wanted Donald Trump to be president? What if? It's well known that Donald Trump's agenda is to expose the corruption, to shut down the cabal and the deep state. Now, these are the forces, those that have all the power and all the money in the world, that run the governments, that dictate the movements of society, and been doing so for a long time, and things like that. So why would the cabal that knows that Donald Trump wants to get in and expose them and bring them down, why would they want him to be the president? That's a good question. Perhaps they know that this is the polarizing figure that could stir things up, that could get everybody really angry, upset, and create huge distractions while they continue to propagate their agendas. That could be what's that called? Agenda 2025 or Project Stargate and stuff like that. These are all globalist agendas that this administration is moving forward. But at the same time, he's stirring up a lot of dirt and a lot of fighting, a lot of distraction. So what if that was their plan, to get him in, to get the ball rolling, but then to get him dismissed in some way so that Vance would be the president, who's all in on Project 2025, who's much more controllable. We know we can't control Donald Trump. It's a theory, but it's been coming up in my meditations and channeling. Let me know in the comments what you think about that, if you agree or disagree with that. But basically, as of right now, there's so much pushback and there's health issues. It's a very real possibility they could be stepping down soon in the summer month. So basically, with that, I have some more predictions where I dive a little bit deeper over here on summer 2025 that you can check out. And on this side, maybe I'll post a video on the New Madrid fall, because that could create a lot of chaos in the world, because that's the Mississippi, or the prospect of tsunamis in the Pacific. I have other videos about that. All that's on the table for July. I'll get more into that later on. I love you, and thank you for watching.